Starting. And we're live!
Woo!
I like how it came up and actually told me, like, after it was like, ding, you've started. It's like live. Just so that means no nose picking.
Oh, man. I missed my chance.
Where's the big one?
Excuse me.
Excuse me! Literally, the boogers have been the theme of the day because the guy next to us today, for like 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
Mhm.
No, stop.
Yeah, my mom kept looking over and being like, he's still in there!
No.
Alright, well, hello, everyone! Now you know what we talk about before we hit the start button. Please be sure to let us know in the comments that you can see and hear us and everything is A-okay. I think everybody knows this, but just in case we have some new people stopping by, today my name is Jennifer. I'm from A Vintage Vanity, doing hair stuff and other things. And today we are talking about the 1944, I look at JL, movie Laura, which is a film noir classic starring Gene Tierney, Clifton Webb, and Vincent Price. And with me, as always, are my other half. Zzz. So if you guys want to say hi.
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 Oh, good Lord, you always take me so literally.
I'm with this every month.
Every month.
We're bad at this.
I'm gonna start saying, now everybody say something. I'll think of something funny. We have Heather from How to Be Fancy over on YouTube.
Hey, guys. Welcome, welcome.
If you don't follow her already and know her and love her, she does lots of makeup-y stuff and fashion-y stuff, and I love her style because it always has like a touch of that little vintage in it, but you do a lot of really modern stuff that I really love.
It changes daily depending on the mood.
And that's why we like you.
Oh.
And then, of course, we have the other half of my brain, which is JL from
Hi.
Modern Retro Gal.
This is what half of Jen's brain looks like.
Yeah. Isn't it
Beautiful.
cute? It reminds me of that movie, that Disney Pixar movie that came out about all the emotions that live in the brain.
Inside Out?
Yes!
A good one.
So good.
I want to be...
Okay, you will laugh.
You'll cry.
But of course, we're not here to talk about Inside Out, though we could.
Could.
That movie. Love that movie. Because how could we tie the two together? It's got to be a way. We'll figure it out. And every month, as you guys know, we have one person in the group that kind of researches the background of the movie before we get into whether we like the movie or not. Well, hello, the Vintage Kitten. And we do already have a lot of our regular, I almost feel like they should be up here as well. We got Mona Jackson, Vintage Camper Girl, and the Vintage Kitten, and Jen Sunset. She is too busy to be here watching the video, but she wants to say love and hearts.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was sweet. And so this month, JL is actually our researcher knowledge girl. So, oh, and by the way, JL's power went out right before this started, and just came back on like
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, like just before we started.
Like, oh crap, I'm the researcher this month. I hope somebody maybe knew something about this film in case my power didn't come back on.
So, yes, so we're good to go. We also have Miss Tina Lynn and
Fingers
Cece
crossed
Kitten.
it not happen again. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So if she goes away, or you see her sneaking some food, it is okay. She's trying to fit it all in.
It's
All right,
The
Jen.
power goes out when you're trying to eat dinner.
Yeah.
Right before movie night.
Yeah.
A little stressful.
Yeah, a little stressful, but it's like the perfect ending to this day that I've had so far. So, but which seems to be the common thread with all three of us. Been a day.
We could have story time tonight.
Yeah, we could. Who knows? We will end up in a face shaving area of the world.
Stop.
So, no. There could be noises off in the background. Children are migrating rooms. So, but yeah, so this is Laura. It was released in 1944. It was directed by Otto Preminger, I guess is Preminger. I'm not sure exactly how to spell the last name or pronounce it. But when I was doing research, one of the things that I found very interesting was the drama that was going on just trying to get a screenplay and this film even rolling, because it almost didn't happen. It was originally a play written by, where's her name? Where'd it go? I have so many notes. Oh, Vera Caspary, and she shopped it. Preminger actually heard about the play and he was really interested in it, but there was some conflicts with the direction that he wanted to take it in a film form. So she kind of like said, okay, I'm not going to do anything with this, and then eventually turned it into a book, and then they kind of revisited it, and there was a lot of turmoil within 20th Century Fox because they ended up buying it for $30,000, the rights to turn it into a movie. And at the time, the movie head was off fulfilling his wartime duties. So there was all of this turmoil as to who was going to direct it, and the studio head wanted one director, and Preminger really wanted to do this. There was all of this conflict going on, just like who was going to be the director, and then once he was the director, who the casting was going to be, because then his name is Zanucker. He came back. He was the studio head who was off fulfilling his wartime duties. He came back, and then he had all of this ideas of who he wanted cast, and they were butting heads, and it was like this big deal. So I thought, well, kind of like how cool is that you know, this murder mystery where there's all of this like drama going on with the storyline as to who, you know, murdered Laura, and then she comes back. And who was it that was really murdered and who did it, and there's all this conflict. So I thought it was kind of like interesting just how much drama there was just trying to get this, because originally, I guess
In jail, you have Emily going off to Amazon to read the book.
Oh.
Or buy the
I
book.
wrote down to read the book
It's so
too.
cool.
And Mr. Free Hugs is like, wow, a play and a book? Because that usually the book comes before.
Yeah, she wrote it as a play, and so when she couldn't get it initially turned into a movie, then she tried to shop it on Broadway, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. So that's when she turned the play draft that she had written into a novel, and then that's when 20th Century Fox bought it for $30,000. So I was like, that's crazy. So I thought that was interesting. Even during filming, when the studio would like watch the rough cuts, there was still drama. In fact, the original ending had Leidiger imagining the whole story like it was a dream. He woke up. And in the initial filming, there was a columnist who went up to the movie studio head and was like, I don't get it. That didn't make any sense. So he had to go back to the director and say, okay, you win, because Preminger, like, that wasn't the ending that he wanted, but the studio had insisted that they end the movie that way. So he was like, okay, you win. You can change it to however you want it. So it was interesting, like, reading all of this stuff. Like, there's so much drama that just went into just getting this movie made. I think there was mixed reviews from what I could read. Some gave it glowing reviews and thought it was great. Some thought that it was a very, like, formula film noir. So it was interesting to see that. In fact, there was one New York Times review that was very critical of Gene Tierney's portrayal of Laura and said that she did not give enough depth and emotion to the character, which I was like,
to a dead girl character.
Yeah. To the dead girl character, right? And then 3 other, like, interesting, like, kind of behind the scenes things that I found was, number 1, if this is true, this is what I found. Vincent Price considered this the best movie he ever made, which I was like, out of all of the Vincent Price movies.
Well, you know what though, he was a much more classically trained actor, so that actually makes sense to me because he kind of fell into that, like, horror creep genre, and he was a very artistic person who found a lot of ways for his creativity to be explored. So I could definitely see this, because this character, and I know we'll get into this, so I'm not going to try not to jump too much, but the way he played that character, oh my God, it was brilliant. But, okay, and I'll leave it.
The second was the portrait of Laura that was in her apartment that was made for her was actually a photo that was enlarged, and they went over it with oil paint to make it look like a painting.
Oh, interesting.
And third, apparently Hedy Lamarr was interested in the part of Laura at one time, or they were interested in her for the part of Laura, and she passed on it. And when later on they asked why she passed on the character, she said, because apparently the Laura theme music in this movie is what was so sort of famous. They call it the Laura theme. And she said that she passed on it because they sent her the script and not the score. And if she had heard the music that went with it, because apparently it was very iconic at that time, the sort of like theme music for the title character. Had she heard the music, she would have, I guess, gotten the story more. So that's
I'm like in my head trying to put her in that role.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I found interesting about sort of the history of this movie trying to become a movie.
If anyone is interested, you can find the Laura theme soundtrack on YouTube. I just searched to see if it was there. There's like a 15-minute score available. It's kind of cool. Homework.
Because instead of counting, I think some of it is there's like a scene where they go to play like a record in her apartment or something, and it's like this very kind of like slow haunting music, and I think that's what they were talking about because they kind of reused that throughout the movie. It was kind of early on when they're in her apartment.
When he was like, oh, it's not classical, but
it's her favorite or something like that.
Yeah, and then Leidecker was like, oh, turn that off or something. He got like all upset over it. And I think that music, they kind of use it a little bit throughout the rest of the movie.
That makes sense.
What's interesting is that Mr. Free Hugs, which, by the way, we all want hugs, said that they watched a interview of Gene Tierney saying that she thought Hedy Lamarr would have been a better candidate for the role.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I could see her do it, but I feel like that Laura would have been a little more vampy, in my opinion, where I really liked her being a little bit, there was that, like, mystery, like,
yeah,
you are drawn to her.
Than Hetty. Also, I think Jean Tierney had a little bit of an identity crisis in general, so she probably would have said that. Like, I can totally see her saying that as just a person, because I don't think she even really liked herself in that role because of where she was just mentally in life. So I can totally see her saying that.
Sorry about the eating shots, but I'm so hungry right now.
No, that's okay. Feel free. So real quick, I'm going to say for the people in the comments as well, I know quite a few of them have already said that this is a favorite movie of theirs. So we'll go around the merry-go here on what our overall thoughts of the movie were, and to give JL a chance to put more food into her mouth. We'll start with Heather, go to me, and then end up at JL. So Heather, what did you think of the movie?
I really wasn't sure what to expect, mainly because of the Vincent Price aspect of it, because I'd never seen him in something like this, I don't think, and I loved it. Like, this has, like, bumped movies off of my favorites list. It is, like, seriously, like, I rewatched it today because I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I think it's one of those that I could watch over and over and not be bored of, because the characters, I felt like the actors really got into the characters and didn't overplay them. So it was a little bit more, to me, like a little more method, I guess. And so I just really appreciated it. I loved Clifton Webb as Waldo. Like, I loved him as that character. I think that role was, like, made for him, and his quirkiness and just everything about that character. I loved the things that he said. Like, there's so many quotable moments of things that he said, especially in the beginning. I think it's when Laura comes in with her portfolio, comes to his table, and what does he say? I wrote it down because it's hilarious. He says, what did he say? Oh, maybe you suffer from the common female delusion. The mere fact of being a woman exempts you from the rules of civilized conduct. I don't know. He just had so many ridiculous, like, things that, but then what I loved about that is, so he says this about her, but then he ends up helping get her promoted to the top of, like, an advertising firm or whatever. And that was another one of my favorite parts of the movie, because you actually get to see a female in boardrooms where she's the only female, and she's not just in there, like, taking notes. She's actually running the meetings. She's actually helping the artists. So I thought that was really, really progressive, especially when you think about things like Mad Men, where we see women having such a struggle. Like, I loved, those were probably two of my favorite little bits, were when she takes her portfolio in, and then as he's, like, basically shaping her into himself, and then she obviously turns.
Exactly. I would agree. I absolutely adore this movie because, like you said, nothing was overacted. I felt like it placed these characters in those situations and then just let it naturally flow to its final result. There was nothing rushed. There was nothing too slow. I thought the pacing was just amazing because if you think about it, there's not a lot of, like, big action-y sequences, but it's just like this even keel, like, smooth ride to the end. And I absolutely loved this idea of this detective who came in, like, his little game, you know, that he was playing to calm himself down, like, all these little tricks that he was doing to kind of find out what people were thinking and to get into their heads and that. And it felt very Sherlock-y to me without being Sherlock. Like, you could see his mind working in all those ways of trying to figure out. And this, I can almost always pinpoint, like, who did it or where a movie's going to. And this one, I didn't know. Like, I thought, well, maybe it was, maybe it is Waldo. I don't know. Maybe it's, Vincent. I don't know. I really need to know his character name, but I can't do it. I can't do it. Because you could see, like, nobody was overwhelmingly that
Villain.
bad guy.
Yeah.
You could put that person in every single role. So I was like, I didn't really know. I was like, where are they going with this? I don't know for sure. And yeah, again, going back to the empowerment female, and I think that's why Jean Tierney for me was so perfect for this role, because again, it wasn't the vamp. It wasn't this woman that was, when you read that title of a man who falls in love with a woman who's been murdered, you automatically are going to think it's some, like, ooh, succubus who's going to slink into the screen and, like, steal it. And it wasn't. It was just her basically standing up for herself, being opinionated, and saying what she thought. And that's what people were falling in love with. And that's why people were so drawn to her. And I love that Clifton's character, at times, like, I couldn't help but like him. And other times I was like, oh, dude, you're so controlling. That's not cool at all. Like that little montage, that making of montage, I was just like, that is not right.
I think I may have read, I could be making this up, but I think I may have read that little montage where it says I showed her how to do her hair, what was most flattering on her. That whole scene, I think, was actually maybe taken out of the original. I feel like I read this.
There was actually, what I read was that the narration was supposed to be by three different people, three different characters. It was Clifton Webb, Vincent Price, and Jean Tierney, and they took out Vincent Price and Jean Tierney's voiceover narration.
Yeah.
Just left in his. That's what I...
Yeah. But that little scene, though, they took it out because it was during World War II. And they didn't want to show people back at home living this luxurious life. They were afraid that people would get the wrong idea. So they took it out. And then when they remastered it, they had found it's like that 2 minutes, and they put it back in where it was originally at. And I thought that was really interesting, that there were a lot of things that they did to kind of allude to the reasoning, why even like the detective, why he was not serving, because they kept referring to that injury. Like he had like a pin in his leg or something because of a gang fight or something. I can't remember the whole story, but they kept alluding to it.
Waldo kept referring to him as like the
Silver Shin or something like that.
Silver Shin, yeah. So it was alluding to an injury that would have kept him out from serving in the war. So it was like little things. They put little things like that into it because it was during the wartime. So why an able-bodied wouldn't be off serving in the war? Yeah.
What are you thinking? And when you think about it, because they never really addressed that with Vincent Price's character, but given the way he played that character is very, at the base of it, very cowardly and very manipulative. I was like, oh, so he probably, now that you guys are talking about this, I'm like, oh, he probably would have found some, like, loophole to make it so he didn't have to go. Interesting. Before we move to JL, I will go through some of the comments really quick. Let's see. Brooke says that Laura, the song, is her parents' wedding song. Interesting. Vintage Camper Gal, I think I missed part of the conversation. Oh, they were all talking about... Okay, hold on. Going back. They had started talking about how Jean Tierney is, very sweet, but they really enjoyed her in a movie called Leave Her to Heaven, which I have not seen, where she plays quite a wicked character. And a lot of really liking her in that movie. A lot of people liking Clifton Webb. Men taking to their roles. It was Vintage Camper Girl says she loves her growth and her self-awareness. Miss Tina Lynn says yes, it was the first time she watched it, she didn't know who it was either. as well as Vintage Camper Gal. For at least once, you did not know the ending, which was fun. Karen says that she watched it, absolutely loved it. Jean's a babe. Brooke is saying, thank you so much, JL and Heather, for all the cool information. A lot of people really like learning all those interesting facts behind the movies. Marina's like, I cannot believe. I like how I'm putting their inflections in for them. This is how I imagine that you guys typing these things. She can't believe that part was out of the movie. That's her favorite part.
Right?
God. And Emily said it was the lead leg.
When I watched it, I was like timing it. I think that whole montage is like a good 15 to 20 minutes of the movie.
It's a big portion of the film, I think. But that one, there's a little scene that they easily could have taken out, but I think you still kind of have to pick up on how he's making her into what he wants her to be. And I love, he even said, she's in this beautiful fur skirt, which I thought was really random, and she's sitting there, and he says something like, the way she listened was more eloquent than speech. So he just wanted her to sit there and listen to him while he talked. Just when you start picking up on his character.
Brooke says her favorite line of his was, you better watch out, McPherson, or you'll end up in a psychiatric ward. I doubt they've ever had a patient who fell in love with a corpse.
Oh,
he has good liners.
Definitely.
Which is why I think a lot of the times I kept thinking, oh, well, he's just one of those guys. You know what I mean? Like one of those very self-important people. He couldn't possibly be the murderer because that would require a lot more of him emotionally than I think he's capable of.
Yeah.
So, and I honestly, I thought it was going to be Vincent Price because, hello, Vincent. But also because, she's catching on to my act and I'm not going to be able to put one over on her and all that kind of stuff. But before that, JL, what'd you think?
Oh, okay. Well, I actually really liked this movie also, and when I first started watching it, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. I had to watch it a couple of times because, 2 or 3 times that I watched it, it was just under the wrong circumstances, and I kept falling asleep and then waking up in the middle of the movie, and I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. So when I actually was in the right frame of mind and sat and watched it, I was really able to kind of really get into it. But what I really liked about it is that any one of the people carried life, the kind of main people life, whether it was Waldo or Shelby or her aunt, I guess, you could believe that any one of those 3 people would have been the one to murder her because they all had some sort of motive, and so these motives kind of came in and out, and it made it really kind of it was one of those movies where you wanted to watch it to the end because you wanted to see what was going to happen. And the more I watched it, the more I was like, Decker is almost like a sociopath. This guy just thinks so much of himself because when the detective comes to his house for the first time and he's in the bathtub.
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that.
The conversation, the story of his last night with her, and he's basically typing, and now the detective's here. It's how full of yourself are you that you're in the bathtub and you're just come on in. He's typing I'm watching him right now through the window, through the door, and da da da. And this guy is straight crazy town.
I thought originally, my initial thought, before I kind of met the other characters and started suspecting everyone, was that he had done it in order to have, content for his stories. That's what I thought, because of that scene.
Yeah. So I just thought, and then he
little of both, maybe?
And he's getting dressed, and then he's like talking to the detective, and he's like, so am I a suspect? And he's like, well, yeah, everyone's a suspect right now. And he's like, oh, good, because I would just be so upset if you didn't suspect me. I'm like, this guy is like taunting this detective, like, oh, don't I seem suspect to you, like, old man? You know, like, it was just, his character was so interesting that I was like, at first I was sold, but then I was like, well, maybe it is one of the other people because they have motives too. And, you know, and then what got me the most was the age. He was like way older than her. And he talks about when they're in the restaurant that, oh, this is where we were the day before she was 22. And this is where I met her 5 years earlier. She was like 17.
I wrote that down.
And I'm like, this guy has some serious issues. If he is not the murderer, he needs to like go away.
Yeah, there was a lot of creep levels in that.
But then as you got to know Laura's character, I thought, you know, she's a little bit manipulative herself. Like, she may be young, but she kind of knows almost how to use people to get where she wants to go. Like, as much as he tried to help her with her career, she knew that if she landed him as an account, that was gonna send her straight, you know, up in company. So,
well, I mean, we are talking about a woman who had a portrait of herself over her fireplace, so she was very confident in her abilities.
Yeah. So it was kind of
like... but you do have to wonder, though, how much of it was just innate, like, this is how I work, or how much was of it was forethought. Because at the same time, then, it doesn't make her, it doesn't, if you put that 100% on her character, it doesn't make sense that she would fall for Vincent Price's character. Because he would be a reflection of her, and they would see that in each other, and not, it would be like polar opposites.
I kind of think that because she
got rid of her other suitors. So, you know, Waldo was always getting rid of these other suitors and sort of like demeaning them. So it was kind of like, I don't think she was necessarily in love with him, but she just saw how good he was for her career.
And I think with Vincent, maybe it was more the fact that she had like made him in a sense. So because she gave him his job and she could.
Because she was being Waldo.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Oh, thank you, Heather and Jill.
You're welcome.
Never saw that. Oh my God, you were so right. So right. Oh my gosh. Okay, real quick.
At the end of the movie, the detective is like more her equal, but then again, it's like, was she somehow using him a little bit too, maybe to get rid of all
I think he was bringing out her real self. So like the pre-Waldo self. Like I think that's what we kind of see.
But at the same time, didn't she say something to the effect that when Waldo was talking about him and what, like, he calls women dames, he calls them dames, you see? She said, it's hilarious to me. But she said something like, I like this idea that he was waiting there for me.
Yeah. So I think she saw that, like, maybe there wasn't anything that he necessarily needed from her. Like, Waldo needed this, you know, prize. And Clifton needed the money. Right? No. Vincent Price's character, Shelby Carpenter. Like, he needed, like, the money and the job from her. But this detective didn't really need anything from her, you know, like, to show for himself. It was just her.
Interesting. Ooh, sorry. Real quick, I'm gonna catch up on the comments real quick. No, okay. Emily said it's the lead leg, is what they were saying, and Camper Gal says, "Oh no, lead poisoning."
Oh, no. It's going to be a short relationship.
Yeah. Well, he was super old too, so. Or no, that was the other one. Never mind. Marina says she likes how subtly they portray McPherson falling for Laura. It wasn't like all of a sudden he was like madly in love with her. Emily says, yeah, she thought it was going to be like completely over the top, a man in love with a dead woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. A lot of people also were like, I thought everybody was guilty, didn't know who it was. A lot of shady people around. And then I believe this was during the time we were talking about Waldo in the bathtub, that Vintage Camper Gal says, hey, nobody wants to see that.
You know, speaking of that, what I heard was when because he was a theater actor at Clifton Webb, and so this was like his first film back as he was an older man, and I thought it was hilarious because he like is it Dana? What's the detective's real name?
Dana Andrews.
Yeah, he was like, I saw myself in the bathtub, and the only thing that cured it was Dana brought me a bourbon, because he was like, I realized I was an old man. I wasn't this young like stage actor that I thought I was.
That's funny. I do think it's funny, like at that bathtub scene when he was getting up, he had asked the McPherson to get him something. I can't remember what it was. But he goes over there, and it's like he sees him getting up, and he has that, like, smile on his face, like, oh. That's laughable.
Oh, I do want that bathtub, though. Not gonna lie.
Yes. You found on the keyboard. Marina says, after watching it a second time, you can see what a power trip Waldo gets from knowing what he did and nobody else knowing. Mm-hmm. Which, yes, so much. No, and like I'm reviewing the movie in my head. Mm-hmm. A lot of people thought the same thing about him in the tub. Hugh Hefner syndrome.
Totally.
Camper Girl also says 1944 selfies, portrait style, different times. Emily said, I never saw that, but makes so much sense. I think that might be what, in reference to what Heather said, that blew my mind.
Vincent Price.
Yes. I thought it was interesting that no one seemed concerned about the dead model.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Because weren't they going to go talk to her at one point? And maybe they never did.
I can't remember. But yeah, poor thing. Like, it's just an afterthought.
What say you, classy chicks? Are you dames or dolls? I'd say I'm a dame. I'm a dame.
I don't know. Probably a doll.
Oh, I think we lost Jail. I hope her.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Because I was reading comments and then I looked up and I was like, there's no Jail face.
Aww.
Oh, I'm going to. Oh, no. Power out again.
She's just sitting in the dark talking to herself.
She's like, now I thought. Hopefully she'll be back on soon. Brooke Crane said, totally a complete narcissist. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm alive. Can you fix us breakfast? That was kind of hilarious.
I know.
Right?
Poor Bessie. Although I did think she had done it at one point too.
No, me too. I'm like, she's obsessed with her. It's single white female all over again. Because she was very like, when they were going to arrest her, she was like, no, puts herself in front of her. So.
P.S. Take over the eggs and toast, please.
Yeah. I know you just fainted, but. Bessie screaming, no. But that is funny though, going back to what you said about the whole women in boardroom kind of thing too. Like, she pretty much comes out and says it during that breakfast scene. Mm-hmm. You know, like, yeah, I wanted to do all this, but after I would tell my mom, then she would teach me how to cook something else or something like that.
A new recipe or something. Yeah.
I
can relate.
Oh no. Yeah, it's almost like sometimes I hate to say it, but like home ec was my favorite class in school. And it's like such a typical girl thing. And I'm like, sorry.
No.
I enforced that stereotype.
I enforce a lot, but I don't know that that's my strength. I was always starting side businesses with my home ec project.
There you go. You're having an Etsy shop before Etsy exists.
I would make all kinds of things and then sell them to my friends. I was a terrible child.
No, that's very enterprising.
No, I was enterprising.
I like it. Yeah, not terrible. What we got? Mona said didn't get to finish the movie. Can someone tell me why the heck she wanted Jean? Why Jean wanted a big glass of milk at the party? Basically because I don't think Waldo drank. Because she went in there to get the milk for him.
I loved that scene. Like I liked it the first time I watched it, and I guess I was so enamored with young Vincent Price throughout the first time I watched it. I kind of ignored the creepiness of his character and whatnot. And then the second time I watched it, that whole scene where he's in the kitchen and he's talking to the cook, and he's so adorable in that scene that you almost think that it's all a big lie. I don't know. I just thought I loved that part where he's and she won't marry me to the cook. I thought that was very endearing, and I may have fallen in love with Vincent Price a little then, which is something I never, ever, ever in my whole entire life thought I would ever say.
Welcome to the club.
Okay, good.
I can listen to that man read the phone book. I've always loved him, even in his height of creepiness. There's and I think that's part of it is he is very charming and he's very almost hypnotically seductive at times, and you're just like, oh, he's such a tall man too.
He's so tall. Yeah, I think the mustache has always thrown me off, so this gave me a chance to appreciate him without a mustache.
Nice.
And changed my whole world.
So true. Brooke asked, didn't Waldo have the portrait painted of her by Jacoby?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Did he?
I'm not sure. I just know he said that he was in love with her, and I know he wanted the painting at the end.
Yeah. I like that scene too when he kind of stalks her. There was that moment, and then another moment with McPherson in a car where you can really see kind of that noir sort of cinematography where they're following him down that snowy street, and the way that they shot all of that. To me, there were very few moments of classic noir shots, but those were a couple of those scenes when he was stalking Jacoby, kind of keeping his eye open for him.
A lot of people, charmer, definitely super charming in this movie. Love his creepest sexy. Really, Mona got thrown off by the soft voice tones he threw. And Amy didn't realize it was him until later on in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, because I think it throws you off at the beginning. And unless you know him well enough, I think maybe you might not catch on to it right away. Because
I can see that. Because
so
even
different.
his voice, it's the same voice, but it's not as that. I don't know. He's always got that timbre to his voice that wasn't really there in this film. It's still his voice, but it's almost a very young version of it. So I can totally see how you'd miss.
And he played it so oh. I'm just trying to get ahead in the world.
Just a little charming boy.
And a lot of talk about Jean's waves being on point in this movie, and I completely agree. after watching this movie, I am going to try to recreate them. I don't know if I
Yay.
actually will be able to, but I will try.
You know
'Cause
what?
those.
Yeah, I loved it. You know what I also liked about this, and I need to like, I don't have a great visual of her hair in other films, honestly, but I liked that like even with her clothing and everything, it was very straightforward. Like it wasn't super glossy at any point in time. It was very almost her natural texture came through, but then it was still perfection. Like,
Yeah.
so I loved that it wasn't like this over the top glamorous, but it was very gritty, but perfectly done. Like, I loved that. And even with her clothing, like everything was very business.
Mhm.
The fabrics weren't anything, even when she was dressed up, they were very almost matte type textures and fabrics and stretch fabrics. I love that. Oh, JL's here.
I'm back. Sorry. I had to reset my wireless because the whole thing,
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole thing, all of a sudden it just like froze the whole thing. Sorry.
Okay. We were talking about how much we enjoy Mr. Price, and now Heather's, can I say pontificating? I feel like that's a good word.
Good word. Like it.
On her hair and her clothing, which I am completely agreeing with.
Okay, good.
Some
good outfits.
Yeah, and well, to paraphrase Heather, as if she were not here, basically, it was kind of boardroom attire, very like subdued in and even the fabrics, not over the top.
Dude, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I would have to say I loved because you were talking about the sculpted but also naturalness of her hair, and I loved like at the bottom, like her curls weren't like uniform; they were like really fluffed up at the bottom, and I just kind of wanted to reach in and like touch her hair.
Yes, me too. Me too.
And I love that. Like a part of me is like, is that intentional? But I have to think it is. You know what I mean? That they thought that much about her character and who her character would have been to pay that much attention to her hair. There is some talk about her hats in the comments, and I kind of have to skew on to Amy's side of things of her floppy hats seemed kind of strange with their outfits.
I liked them, but I can imagine that 99.9% of the population would look super weird in them.
Yeah, I did find some of them strange, especially when they were. I felt like I kept waiting in certain situations for her to take them off. You know, like when they were. She and Vincent Price were at the restaurant, and then he's like, "Let's dance," and it felt like she still had like a coat on and like this big floppy hat on, and it just didn't seem like restaurant dance attire to me. Like it was a little strange.
There were and like if it was one or two floppy hats, I would have been okay with, but there were so many. Oh yeah, Mr. Free Hug says the floppy hats just proved how beautiful she was to pull them off.
That's kind of what I thought too. I agree, because I was like, oh, I kind of like that hat, and I was like, no, you wouldn't really like that hat if you saw it on anyone else.
And I kind of wondered like how much of that was her own style, like Laura's character would have been her style, and how much of that was Waldo's influence when he's like, I molded her and I picked out a more becoming hairstyle and better, fitting clothes for her figure and all this stuff. And I'm like, weirdo.
Yeah, P.S. I hated that updo.
Thank you, because that was the exact moment where he was saying the more flattering hair. I'm like, in what universe?
Yeah,
maybe for an old man.
I know. Exactly. You have just aged her like 20 years with that hairstyle.
However, that one fancy dress that had the cape with the stuff on the shoulders, I'll take one of those in every color.
I hope we're all rich enough someday to walk into a store and do that. I'll take one in every color.
There was a brief moment. I wish I had like screen capped it or something, because it's not even a pivotal moment. It's when he walks into where she's working, and there's a lady standing at like the receptionist desk, and she's got this suit on, and it's got stars that come just down the shoulders. It's gorgeous. I want it. It's Andrew's sisters like galore, and I really, really wanted it.
Now I'm gonna have to rewatch just for that.
It's like a 3-second clip, but I was like, "Ooh, go back."
All right. Keeping up on comments. Oh, by the way, I know this does look very much like the atomic boomerang in my clothing line. It is actually the Star Trek communicator. They're a little similar. I'm not gonna lie. And a couple people saying, well, if you like Vincent Price, you should watch House of Wax next time. I do love House of Wax, by the way. We have to ease Heather into the more thrillers.
I've seen The Fly. Not my favorite, obviously. But I like him. It's fine.
Also, we have people saying to watch Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
Tierney.
I've never seen that.
It's so good.
Really? Mr. Free Hugs, her outfits were very simple fabrics to make her beauty stand out. Oh, this is a conversation you missed. Brooke says she would be a doll. I can't remember who. I think it was Mr. Free Hugs asked the question of, are you dames or are you dolls? And we're split down the middle with me being a dame and Heather being a doll. So, Jail, are you a dame or are you a doll?
I don't know.
What's your gut tell you?
My first instinct, I guess, would be a dame.
There you go.
But I don't want to put myself in a box, so I can never be doll-like either.
Sure, she's a doll.
No,
Adele.
No, not to be confused with Adele.
A dom.
Mona says the Ghost and Mr. Chicken or the Incredible Mr. Limpet. Vintage Kitten was dying over her hair and dresses when Waldo was talking about how he made her and put her out there. A lot of agreement on the hats-ish. Well, I would say it's kind of mixed as well. Nobody liked that up here.
Other hats during the movie that I really liked, like
they were all floppy hats.
Was there a non-floppy hat?
Well, the other people were wearing the one hat of hers that I really liked was the one that had the
one of that person walking by.
The lace.
The lady with the star.
Lace. The one hat of hers that I really liked was the one where it had kind of the black lace that came down over the brim. That one I really enjoyed. However, her aunt had some really good hats that were a little more like subdued and stylish, I felt like. And I was like, why is she getting all the good ones?
Her hat at the very end with like I loved that one.
Yes.
Mona says, and I'm wondering if it was Mona, I'm not sure I understand this. I was going to say, Jen, if you liked that. Oh, the updo, the hairstyle updo. Okay, I get it now. She said if I like that one, she would have to unsubscribe.
Unfollowing.
Unfollow.
Well, I noticed that in the beginning, it seemed like she was wearing her hair how he wanted it a lot, and then sort of towards the end, especially when she came back, she was wearing it down in that more kind of like pre-makeover style that she had when she first met him, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Which I was like, is she starting to try, it was like as she had other suitors coming around, is she trying to like subtly like break free of him? She's not doing these really, sculpted updos anymore. Her, it seemed like her attire kind of went back to like before he started putting her in these really like high class fancy outfits. So it's like, is that her way of trying to like pull away from him some?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because maybe now that she got into that position, she knows how to handle herself and didn't so much need him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That probably led to more of his panic over losing control over her.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question for you guys and you guys. That scene where Vincent goes back to the cabin to get the rifle, I think it was, that was over the fireplace. Why? Why? Because obviously he didn't do it and she didn't do it, right? So number one, why would she tell him to go back and get it if that's what they talked about in the car? Or why would he go get it without being told to go get it? And what do you guys think they actually talked about in the car?
I don't know what they talked about in the car, but I think whatever they talked about led him to believe that she had something to do with it, because I think he thought she was jealous of the model, because he had been seeing that model along with her, because when he comes back to the party, she says, "You're convinced I've done it." And so I think he may have gone to the cabin to actually hide the gun, maybe. I don't know exactly, but I think he was trying to cover up. Like, he was on her side. He was going to help protect her if she had something to do with it. That's my theory.
Well, Amber backs that up.
What's that?
Amber backed that one up.
Oh, it is a little confusing. But he says a line when they're at the very last party, that he basically says, "I'm on your side. I know you've done it." And she gets really offended. That's when she goes into the room with her aunt, because she's offended because he thinks that she's done this thing, that she's killed the model in her home.
Okay. What were you thinking, JL?
I had the opposite feeling. My take was that he was so afraid of this getting pinned on him because of his history that I do think that he at some point believed that she did it out of jealousy, not only over the model, but because also of her aunt.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And that he decided to take it upon himself to, maybe I don't know if he really knew 100% sure, but he says maybe suspected that she did it. And so to help take the flack off of him, he was gonna, surprise, here's some evidence, kind of a thing. Like he purposely went to get the gun, because he even told the detective, he's like, "Well, I know that you were following me." So he knew he was following him over there. So I personally think what they fought about in the car was that he wanted to be with her aunt because her aunt had the means to support his playboy lifestyle, but he needed her to pretend that they were going to be together a little bit longer to try and get the heat off of him.
So you think he was going to pin it on her, basically?
Yes, and then I think he went to go get the gun to then flip it to make it look like she was the one who was guilty. I think he was, at that point, when she came back and was alive, I think he was just like fully scheming to get heat off of him.
That's interesting because because he knew.
That's a good theory. Yeah.
He knew. And Marina brings up a good point that goes along with that, JL, is that she thought it was interesting because Shelby was super selfish, so why would he be so concerned about protecting her? It seems against character.
I thought it was for her money, honestly. I just thought he was trying to make sure that he had someone that he could.
Yeah, the aunt had been.
But I can see the
over
aunt
him
too. Yeah,
I could have been all over him from the beginning, and because she even said at the party, like, "Why are you with her? Why don't you just marry me? Like, I'm the one with money." Like, So I think.
And they actually did seem like a better pairing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, yeah, because they were both like not great people, so they kind of deserved each other.
Agreed.
What was my? Oh, there was something else. There was some. Oh, thank you very much.
I think they were talking about.
Oh, what do I think they were talking about in the car? I don't know. I thought they were arguing, obviously, and now maybe they were just arguing about each of them thinking the other one did that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand why she didn't break up with him in that moment. I don't know. I don't know what went on in that car, and I just found it very confusing that after that he goes off and to the cabin. But now that JL says that, I'm thinking that actually makes that's a good theory.
I thought, well, why else would he have gone to the cabin? And it was just like there was obviously something in that car with the conversation of like maybe somehow like he felt like she did it or was like involved in it, and he's like, oh, just tell me the truth, you know. And he had been scrambling the whole time trying to get, you know, the heat off of him, like how helpful he was, and I'll answer any question you want me to answer. So it was kind of like had to be something to cause him to then want to go and get the gun. He's like, oh, you don't remember me giving you the gun? And she's like, I don't know what gun you're talking about. So I was like,
There's some interesting stuff going on in the comments. Naimi, I'm so sorry, I can't say that. His character was a coward and didn't want to be blamed for the murder. I think he was covering for himself. To which Amy says the aunt is the one they said that they were suited together. Naima again says, especially, oh, this is a good point, especially how after she is arrested, he is like kissing the woman's hand, like once he got punched in the gut, which, by the way, for a 1944's movie, that was a really good punch. Because usually it's like, you know, a mile away from their face, but that looked really good. But yeah, he gets punched in the gut, and the woman comes over, and the aunt is comforting him, and he like kisses her hand. You know, it's like, oh.
That was the moment I had a question about. That was the moment I was like, well, maybe he is. Obviously he was playing both angles, but that's when I really questioned his character. I think that was when it was really solidified that, yeah, you're just a manipulative, like, person. You're just going with whoever's gonna win at the end of the day.
Yeah. Vintage Camper Gal says, yep, he was a baby who needed a sugar mama. True. There was one other part in the movie that confused me a little bit. I think, oh, sorry, guys. I remembered it, and then I promptly forgot it again.
I'm knocking things over.
Oh, no. Oh, the punch, Mr. Freehug says, it did look reasonably realistic. I will ask the hard question. This is the one I asked last time that you guys hated me for, and that is, who do you think could be dropped from this film, and who do you think absolutely could not be dropped from the film?
For me, that is I feel like Clifton Webb did such a good job with his portrayal of Waldo that for me, he would be the one that like couldn't be dropped. He would have to, he's like my must have. My other thing is I feel like I haven't really delved into film noir enough and really know like kind of the normal actors and actresses that you would see in these roles to be able to say like who I thought could do maybe a better job in any of these other roles, because there was actually a lot of the roles were recasted several times, and I didn't recognize a lot of the other names that were thrown out, especially for the male characters. So that part of the question is going to be really hard for me because I'm just not sure who I feel like I would put. But from watching the movie, I feel like Clifton Webb he did such a good job delving into the like mind of this character that it would be hard for me to see anybody else in that role.
Oh, I don't know. It's too hard. I mean, I love this question, but I hate this question. God, I don't know. I think, yeah, I think Clifton is probably like the key character for me because I think it's difficult to play kind of that psychopathic almost kind of character without like overselling it. So the fact that he kind of underplayed that left us all like guessing, even though he narrated the whole thing. So it was kind of like you automatically suspected him because of the way they did the narration, but you still had this lingering doubt. So yeah, he definitely sold it, I think, for me. Ooh. And I love it. I guess I don't know. I think it would have to be the detective, maybe. Although I really liked him, like especially like I just really like enjoyed the way that everything was so subtle with him, and like you said, how you could see his brain working, but it was never like this obvious thing. But I don't know if that's more of an actor's choice or if that's more of a director's choice. And so that's my only thing with that is maybe his character was a little more of the director's choice. I'm gonna say it was, and anyone could have done that.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it going with Clifton Webb because that was just genius. Had me guessing the whole time, back and forth, because I was like, even if he didn't do it, he needs to go away. Mr. Freehug says Waldo should have worn stripes so we could find him more easily.
Yeah.
I would say the ant.
Oh, we could have picked the ant?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dana.
Heather made a really tough choice.
I made a really hard choice.
Yeah, you did. Because yes, I really like the character in that film, and one of my favorite scenes, and maybe it's just the girly in me, was when they were in the powder room, and she was putting on her, powdering her nose. Which, by the way, I want that compact.
Mm-hmm. I want the lipstick.
I know.
Yes.
Because I think it was just like a brush that had lipstick on it in the container. Yes.
I'm like,
I was like,
lipsticks aren't new.
I know.
So I'm like, I want all those things, and I just like how, like, calmly she like laid it out. Like, listen, honey, he's really not for you.
Yeah.
And I love that scene, but for me, outside of that scene, she kind of falls away in hindsight. So. I mean, because I know it's always like you want to put like a little disclaimer at the bottom, but I loved you anyway. Hurt you.
Obviously, you're a better actor than me, but
yeah. And in the comments, they went with the maid. They went with Bessie.
Oh.
I really liked Bessie. The short amount of time she did things. I just really enjoyed her character because at times I felt like she was kind of like voiced what everybody kind of felt about Laura. Like I go, oh my God, I love her, and of course I cleaned up after her because I didn't want anybody to think, and it's just like those helpful things that you think are helpful, but guess what?
Yeah.
You're totally screwing up all the evidence.
Well, I thought that the actress that played Bessie did a really good job kind of tapping into like the lower working class, service-oriented, you know, how they would, like, looked at the police, you know, how much oftentimes they thought of, like, the people they worked for as family. So I thought she did a really good job tapping into that, but I do feel like, yeah, the actress that played the aunt, it was like, if she was on screen, it was like some of her scenes, she did really well, like with the compact, and, you know, at the end, I felt like, you know, she really kind of nailed into it, but then other times I just kind of felt like she was like ho-hum with the character, like it wasn't.
But she was kind of like holding a space as a character, I think.
Yeah,
like,
and I was kind of wondered, you know, like, who would you put in? I don't even know who I would put in, because any other, like, strong actresses at the time, I don't think would have taken that part, because it was so small. It didn't have as much, you know, screen time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I would have loved to have seen, well, I guess she would have been a little too young at that point, but, like, Joan Crawford or Betty Davis. You're somebody who is that, like, completely cool level, like, wicked of mind in a good way.
Yeah, a little more villainous, a little more, like, acidic would have been kind of nice.
Mona Jackson says, I find it really strange that if you look on IMDb, there are 43 actors and actresses that are uncredited in this film.
What?
Which I know, I was like, initially I was like, where were they all? Because there didn't seem like there were that many, but I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's just all those people in the back of the party scene when she gets arrested and they all go,
yeah.
All right. So it is. We're once again a little over our hour. So I'm going to close things out. Once again, go round the merry-go-round here in case, just to wrap up any final thoughts everybody has. And if you have any final ones, please let them know in the, you know, put them in the comment section. Also, once again, all the comments, all these beautiful, lovely comments that we've been enjoying reading all night will not be available on the YouTube video when it like switches over from a live stream to a recorded one, and we will lose all of these. And I know there were a lot of good movie suggestions. Please feel free to pass them on to any of us. So we do keep a running tally of all the movies people have been suggesting. Also, if you think of anything later, always feel free to come back and comment on the movie. It's on the video itself, because we do keep an eye on that, and we do continue the conversation even after this live stream goes up. So feel free to keep the conversation going there as well. So I'm gonna, JL, did you have any final thoughts for the movie?
I just feel like this has kind of, I really loved it, and it kind of like piqued my interest in really sort of starting to explore a little more film noir. Maltese Falcon, I read, was considered a film noir, which it never really like dawned on me that was, which is like, I love that movie. So it's really kind of made me like, you know, kind of have a little more interest in exploring this genre in classic films, because I think sometimes you tend to stick with like the safe things that everybody else says, oh, this is such an amazing, this is a classic. So to kind of dive into it and have this be the first one that we really kind of dissected, I think was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we picked this movie. And I have a request that if anyone has any film noir that you love, leave it in the comments of the actual video after this post so that we can like keep track, because I'm super interested in the genre now and would love to, if you know of any, like leave them down below. I loved it.
Yay. There's Joan Crawford would have been nice. All those extras, woo! She wouldn't. Mona says she wouldn't have had to bring any coat hangers to the party. Extra part of the 43 is all the girls in the office, which I do say, I would have to say, I enjoyed watching her stick glue on the back of stuff. Just that, you know, because I remember like back in like kindergarten, like the rubber cement
Rubber
glue
cement.
came in those. So yeah, I'm like, that hasn't changed much. Mr. Freehug says, I wonder what it would be like with Vivian Lee as Laura. Which is interesting. My final thoughts on the movie. I loved it. I am a crime procedural junkie. I love anything true crime. And yes, I have watched Making a Murderer.
I'm halfway through. No spoilers.
All right. So, next month, keep it in timing with St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Actually, okay, I'll talk to you guys about that. Yeah, so I just, I have found that I do want to actually watch more Clifton Webb, because I don't really think that I have ever really seen a lot of what he's done, and I'd like to see him as, you know, a younger man as well. And of course now I want to just go rewatch every Vincent Price movie ever. The one thing though, can I just say, I wish they had kind of tailored in his coats a little bit, because maybe it was intentional, but like the overly boxy, looser top just made him seem like a little like, I'm in the room taking up space. And I would have liked to see him a little more slicker. Clifton Webb, Mr. Freehug says, Clifton Webb looks the same all the time. All right. So with that, as always, thank you guys so much for coming out and being a part of the movie discussion. This just made... Sorry. I just saw Mona's comment. After that conversation about Vivian Lee, she was like, no, she was busy helping Atlanta burn. She didn't have time.
Good one.
Yes, Christina. Yes, as far as she's making comments about Making a Murderer, but yeah, I did do a lot of additional. I will just say this: at the end of this, it will make you Google, and I spent a lot of time Googling to form a lot of opinions about stuff. No, maybe we'll have to do a little thing on this. All right, so. With that, guys, once again, thank you so much. Next month, same time, same bat channel, and we will let you guys know at least a week out what the next movie is going to be. We're trying to get ahead of these things, but hey, it didn't sneak up on us this month, so that we're like. All right. Good night, ladies and gentlemen and others. Thanks for coming by. We love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And am I hitting the button?